Welcome. Welcome to this course on climate risk adaptation and sustainable development. The moment we talk about climate risk, its adaptation and how it helps towards achieving the sustainable development, we will get to know the three components, particularly what is climate and what is climate change, and because of climate change what are the risks is there as far as the humanity is concerned. In the second part, we will try to understand how to overcome this risk, how to deal with these risks in terms of adaptation and in terms of mitigations. So, what are the tools and techniques with us to deal with this risk and its mitigation and adaptations. So, in terms of that, we will try to understand what are the technologies, what are the financial mechanisms are there, what are the other bottlenecks in terms of policies and law and legal instruments are there. So, we will try to understand them, and in totality we will try to see that how by accepting, by orienting ourselves towards this kind of lifestyle, how we can achieve the sustainable development. We will try to see through this course that offers a comprehensive overview on the scientific background and current technologies. I have put 5 points here in terms of the key drivers. So, what are the key drivers as far as the climate and the future climate? So, we will try to understand in terms of the past what are the examples we have, and based on that we will try to see what could be the could be the scenario as far as the future climate is concerned, and in that sense what are the various projections, and then the future pathways as far as adaptation, mitigation and sustainable development is concerned, and the factors and constraints. So, what are the various factors and what are the limitations or the constraints in the way of achieving this adaptation and mitigation responses, that also we will discuss by taking several examples as far as the Indian subcontinent is concerned. Then we will try to see the current trends and gaps in adaptation, finance and investment. This is very crucial, because when we need to adapt to this climate change scenarios or climate change risk, or to overcome with respect to this climate change risk, we need finance, we need to invest. So, what are the instruments we have as far as the finance and investment, and in terms of the diplomacy, policy and the legal treaties, what are they, or what are the various climate change policy and treaties are there around us to deal with this adaptation and mitigation responses. We will cover this in 12 weeks. Each week we will have 5 lectures of half an hour duration, 30 minutes duration. So, in that sense it makes 60 classes. In the first week we will talk about understanding climate and climate change. So, we will first understand what is climate, what gives us the climate that we have, and then what is the change in terms of the climate. So, how or why we are having the change in terms of the climate. So, we will finish it in week 1 in terms of climate and climate change, and then we will in detail try to understand the various mechanisms or the drivers that explains the climate change. And in third week we will see the various past experiences, and based on that what could be if we imitate those pattern, then what could be the future projections or the projections in future. And in the fourth week we will try to understand the future risks and impacts caused by changing climate. There we will incorporate a lot of Indian examples, and in the fifth week we will talk about the characteristics of adaptation and mitigation pathways. So, what are the various adaptation and mitigation pathways, we will know through some of our examples. In the sixth week we will talk about the factors and the constraints for adaptation and mitigation responses, and the next week, that is the seventh week, we will come to the technological aspects. In terms of technology, we have the CC US or CCS, which we talk often, carbon capture, utilization and storage technology. So, how to capture the carbon from different point sources and take it to some other residences of carbon, that is mostly the underground, or you say the geological storage or the oceanic or the marine storage. So, this component we will talk in terms of the technological aspect, and the next component we will talk about the finance. So, what are the financial mechanisms and the trade off between the technological innovations or technological routes and the finance. Coming to the 8th week, we will talk about the current trends and gaps in adaptation finance and investment. So, what are the major gaps in terms of adapting to this kind of finance and investment? This is really important and very practical to understand that where are the risks. So, once we understand the risks or the gaps, the trends and the gaps, we will probably try to what you say, attend to them or repair to that kind of gap. And in the 9th week, we will again go on to the market based instruments in terms of different mechanisms. We have the carbon taxation. What we will understand what is carbon tax, what is carbon finance, what is the emission trade or ET, and different kind of regulatory instruments such as REDD, CDM, clean development mechanisms, the EPA and similar kind of instruments. And in the 10th week, we will talk about the international agreements and climate policy architecture. So, we have started understanding with respect to Kyoto Protocol. All of us know the IPCC documents, the various COPs, the conference of parties that happens every year towards early December. This year it happened little bit of in Brazil towards the 2nd and 3rd week of November, but we will talk about this in terms of the various agreements and policy architecture we have, because that is how the world bodies they meet, they discuss, they take a stock of the situation, and accordingly different decisions are taken so as to adapt and mitigate in terms of addressing to this changing climate. And in the week 11, we will try to understand in terms of the 17 sustainable development goals that are targeted to be achieved by end of this decade by 2030, how through our these steps in terms of adaptation and mitigation towards climate change, how we are trying to, or we are moving forward to achieving these SDGs or sustainable development goals. In the last week, we will also come out with few solutions as far as the nature based climate solutions are concerned. So, let us try to cover and complete this in 60 classes over 12 weeks. Thank you very much.